Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me on this Friday. I am Andy with Integrity Data Insights, and I help companies with their reporting and their analytics. And I'm really thrilled to have my guest with me, Mike Bell. He is the CTO of Scheduler AI, which is an up and coming company based right here in the Cincinnati area. I'm actually in Dayton, but close enough to I consider us kind of very close. So, but yeah, I came across. I went to the Cincinnati AI conference, and I came across that my favorite part was probably when they had kind of the companies that are launching things come up and talk, and Mike was one of the presenters, and was blown away and became a client not too long after that. And so yeah, so thanks, Mike. Thanks so much for joining me.
Man, thanks, Andy. Really fun to be on these. And yeah, glad you were able to make it down to the AI week. I think John Salisbury, Zach, those guys are doing an incredible job, right? They're kind of taking that on the road. I think the next one's in Columbus. I don't know if you're in like
Nice.
Indianapolis. They're really kind of like just doing an awesome job, I think, of getting the area more interested and educated on what's going on in AI.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, so I'll give my kind of real quick perspective, and then you can jump in. Um, but so I've been using the product. Well, what's the best way? I've been using the product about a couple months, and essentially how I use it is um, I use it to kind of help with my meetings. It handles it all for me. But why don't I'll give you the floor. You'll probably explain it way better than I will, and then I'll jump in. So tell us, what is Scheduler AI?
Yeah, I mean, so look, scheduler, I think it started in a lot of ways what you're saying, like I'm an individual who's trying to do, I want to schedule more efficiently, right? It doesn't make sense for me to use links, like I don't want to have to do the back and forth, right? Is there something in the middle that can negotiate time for me, make sure people show up, take the meeting notes, help with all that? What we are really evolving towards, though, and pushing hard on is becoming a platform for sales teams and recruiting teams that can actually do automated outreach over web chat, email, text message, right? Conversationally qualify, route, and book to the proper person, and then continue to do all those things like you're experiencing, Andy, right?
Yeah.
Like making sure that it's doing the follow up, helping with rescheduling, if somebody declines, taking care of that. Like you can feel that at an individual level. But what we've really seen is that the companies having the most success with our product, we're in some kind of a workflow for them. Like that's actually what we've seen is like really, really critical, is like where we become essential to a company is where we become embedded in their processes.
Got it.
That's
Yes.
that's been a big thing.
So I'm probably using, not to simplify, but I'm probably using like, 1/10 of what you guys offer. I'm probably more the simple use case, right? Whereas that's why I loved hearing more about that part of it, because that's the part I'm not as familiar with. So that's great.
I think, a lot of it too is like the evolution of the product. And it's actually kind of fun. If you can actually bring my screen share on
Sure.
stage, I
Yeah. Yeah.
was able to find the Wayback Machine where we started this thing, which is kind of hilarious.
No, that's great. Yeah. Here we go.
Let me know if you see. Okay. So this was us back in 2021, 2022. We were not scheduler. We were get together AI, the fastest, easiest way to schedule with a message, right? And it
Nice.
came from this insight that scheduling doesn't start with a calendar. It starts with a message, right?
Yeah.
So it was actually originally built to be between friends and peer groups.
Okay.
So from the very beginning, right, it had to have a different feel than anything else on the market. And we were in things like iMessage, right? We had Discord. We actually won Slack's global hackathon. We were like, oh, this is
Did
gonna
you
be like
really?
huge,
That's
right?
cool.
Yeah. And like we were on the App Store and we had these terrible explainer videos. And like I mean, we were just hacking this thing together with like on the side.
About how many years ago was this? About, just roughly?
Oh, I left Nielsen in 21 originally to get this thing
Okay.
going. And we were all in on that side of things for
Yeah.
over a year. Really not a market there, kind of, you know, social dynamics were different. But after we won Slack's Global Hackathon, we got pulled really hard in, to the commercial space. And specifically, like people kept starting to ask us about sales. I was like, I don't want to do sales. I don't have anything to do with sales. My background's in data science. Like, what is this,
Right.
right? But then as we like started to become our own B2B company, I was like, okay, I get it. Like I understand what they're starting to like talk about when they say there's all this pain. And originally, like when we were talking about before, like where you probably experienced this product, Andy, is from
Yeah,
what I would call schedule, rescheduling, recording, helping with follow-ups, like this part down, right?
correct.
But,
Yeah. Yeah,
but where we're what's
yeah.
that?
So what kind of here's like, just to dumb it down for everybody, the
Yeah.
simplest way I use it is, I had Calendarly, whatever, I can never pronounce it. I still have them, but like kind of the thing with that is you click on the thing and then it kind of forces the person to pick the time. And there's definitely some nice things about it. So my initial reaction is, do I really need this thing? But then when I saw your demo, I was like, wow, this is cool. So really cool example. Here's a real world example of how I used it just last week is, you know, I set up the meeting initially with someone, so I usually I'll send an email to someone. I'll copy in the scheduler AI. There's a specific email address, and I always will say, "Can you please suggest a few times to get together with Kevin?" Whatever. So then it comes back, and immediately I'll say, "Sure. Here's Andy's assistant. Here's 2 or 3 times," and then he can pick one of them. So all still really cool. But then this was really neat. Is so then it reminds them. So then it wrote Kevin in this example and said, "Hey, are we still good?" And he said, "Actually, can we switch to the same time next week or whatever?" It handled it automatically. I didn't have to touch it. I don't know. I was probably doing something else. And so it automatically checked my calendar. It automatically redid all that stuff. So like, that's way more than just, hey, the person clicked the link. Like I'm just putting it into context. Like it sounds, at first on the surface, I was like, I don't really need this thing. But it was like, the more I've used it, it was like, wow, this is like, it's really nice. It just handles a lot of the minutia of scheduling stuff that you don't, that nobody likes to do. Right. So sorry, but I just want to share that quick story.
No, I really appreciate that, Andy. And it's so interesting to hear though, right? Like what you said is actually you had two experiences in one interaction.
Okay.
And this is the big evolution that builders are starting to really see in AI. Your first experience is what we call a co-pilot experience. You opened up an email, you typed something, and it went off and did it for you as a co-pilot, right? And it was helpful.
Right.
Your second experience is what we would call more of an autopilot or agentic experience, right? You did
Yeah.
not tell it, go check in with this person, right? But it went and checked in. And when there was a problem, it resolved it without getting you involved.
Right.
And that's what we call more of an autopilot experience. And what we started to see, and we do see this very clearly now, is people think they want co-pilots, and co-pilots are great, right? Like they really are. Like, shoot, I mean, look, when I'm
Right.
programming, I use GitHub Copilot. The thing writes probably 60% of my code at this point. It's
Uh-huh.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
But like, even when that's acting though, it's like it's doing things without me asking, right? If you saw this like with Chat GPT's original stickiness, right? Like the original stickiness is actually very low because people had to think, I have to go into a platform and I have to do something, right? Even with our email thing, we were like, oh, this is the best way to schedule. People are going to adopt this. No, because they still have to remember to pull it up and to add it. And habit change is very, very, very hard. Anybody who's ever built a consumer product, even a B2B product, knows how hard habit change is. So what we
Right.
had to figure out was like, what's the wedge product that actually people don't even have to think about using? And so we were actually working with the SaaS Academy. We're part of them. They're phenomenal. If you're an early stage founder and you can't figure out sales, these guys, I mean, like, I would say life changing for us, right? Like,
Yeah.
they really,
Yeah.
I will always give them kudos. But they're also one of our clients now. And their kind of sales director came to us with this problem of no shows, right? Like, no shows and ghosting. And
All
we were
right.
like, how can we build something that their account execs don't have to think about using? Because if you go make them adopt another tool, Joe Gilkey talked about this the other day too, right? Like if you make people adopt another tool that they have to like really think about and changes their workflow and changes their process, they will not be happy with you, right?
Right.
They, they,
Yeah.
they don't want to do that. So I think the one you brought up is just such an interesting one, right? Because what we want people to see scheduler doing, it's the same reason like we release things like meeting notes now, right? It's like, how much more can we get it to do without the other person having to think about using it? That's the goal, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, I appreciate that. So you got into a little bit. So But maybe give us a little bit more of the background story too. So how did you come up with this, or how did you realize, hey, this is even a problem that we can?
So the this one, the the this awful website from the Wayback Machine, this was the problem of like, let's get together for coffee. We, became parents. We couldn't get together with our friends. It was just really difficult to figure out. You're not going to send a Calendly to somebody to grab a beer, right? So we're like, wow, what's out there? What can help us do this, right? And we were driving back from church, and Maddie was like, I should be able to add something to a group chat and say, find time for us to meet, and it should just be
Right.
able to know our preferences and our calendars, and it should make it happen, right? I was like, oh, that's so cool. I need to build that. And so I was like building it like in my spare time for a while, and I was like, all right, is this a hobby or a business?
Yeah.
And so at that point, joined actually Ocean Accelerator. So
Okay.
Cutter
I've
first
heard of that.
check. What's that?
I have heard of that.
Yeah, Tim Metzner, one of the guys got kicked that up in the area. He's incredible. Luke Dooley is running the program now. David's like, it's an incredible kind of thing. And so that was kind of our thing, was like, all right, if you're going to leave your job, at least like you don't know what you're doing. So go get into an accelerator, um, and start from there. So
Right.
we did that, and we were all in on this, like, oh, it's consumer to consumer thing, right? And so, I mean, that's what we did, and we tried to
Yeah.
use it, and it just didn't. I think people weren't ready for AI. This was pre-chat GPT. I mean, this
Right.
is like,
Yeah.
we're
I,
building this stuff before that all existed. And it was really just, I think, this like very slow, as a first
yeah.
time founder, you're so ignorant. Like, you are just wildly ignorant. Like, I remember I'd read these things as like, oh, you'll pivot 20 times. I'm like, no, we're clear on our purpose and mission, and I'll never pivot. It's about getting friends together. Like, don't grow apart, get together, and we'll always be get together, and we'll figure it, like,
Right. Right.
and you're like, and the world needs that level of stubbornness from people who are correct in their problem. But I think for us, we just started to realize, we're like, look, this is nah, this is not it, right? And
Right.
then I think, the pivot into the business space with Slack, what we then learned was, we were like, we'll sell this to communities, right? It's about community and creating this.
Yeah.
And like, so you could even still go, I think, onto the Startup Cincy Slack channel, and we're still on there. They were like our first paying clients. It was like $50 a month to like have get together on, Startup Cincy Slack. And it was like so cool. And then
Right.
you're like, all
Right.
right, I'm not gonna get to enough Slack channels for $50 a month to make this thing hunt. And so very begrudgingly started to get pulled into the email space, right? Which was like never my thing. And then we wanted to replace like EAs. So I mean, like, really what it was like going down and running experiments constantly. It's like, oh, okay,
Interesting.
well, EAs have to do all this work. Can we replace EAs? And you can do a lot of that work, but like, it's just not where the market really feels enough pain for there to be there. There's just
Right.
not a market there. I think a lot of this journey has been constantly discovering where there is no market. So
Right. Yeah. Well, it's amazing though. It's like, it sounds like, yeah, you pivoted in all the right ways, but so let's get into a little bit more of the specifics on the parts. Obviously we kind of handled kind of what it does from a scheduling, but I know
sure.
like it does way more than that. Tell us about, like, it can even integrate with your CRM and
Yeah.
kind of qualify leads on your behalf. Just give us a flavor of kind of how that part works.
Yep. So there's a few channels that we use most aggressively for this. I'll start with the one that we've historically run the most, since we kind of had that text message background.
Okay.
Um, we have a number of clients who they have people come inbound on a form, right? But they don't necessarily just want to give them a booking link right away. They want to do some additional qualification,
Okay.
especially for like US based businesses who only serve US based businesses. And, you want to have a US phone number in there. And so they get a really good filter. And so what we'll do is, somebody will put in a form fill. And then rather than, just straight again offering the times there, they'll send it to our system, and our system will go have a conversation with this person. Hey,
Nice.
Andy, you noticed that you were interested in, Awesome Corp for this sort of thing. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you're trying to do? Oh, yeah, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to do this. Oh, okay, great. Can you tell me roughly, how many, I don't know. Well, okay, here's a real example. We have somebody who
Yeah.
uses this for their franchising. So there's this guy, right? Like, they run commercial hood cleaning franchising.
Right.
And so
Okay.
people come in and they say, I want to start a franchise. But then it goes and has a conversation. It's like, do you have the funds to start a franchise? Do you have actually the time to start a franchise, right? Like, can you do all these things? And only if they're actually qualified will it send them into a meeting with this person. So we save
Thing.
a ton of time for him. And then even for people like who have, say, inbound teams, they're typically not staffed 24/7. So say a lead comes in at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
You're going to make them wait till the next morning to start that conversation. Like, don't do that, right? Like, start the conversation. Don't try to have the whole thing there. Like, your real goal with this type of AI should not be to handle the whole conversation. The goal of this should be get them to the right person as fast as possible if they're qualified to talk to them. Like that's the key, right? And I think you see like Intercom, is positioning themselves in the market, say, as like a web chat that's like, I'm here to answer all your questions and save your customer support team time. That's not our wedge. That's not our niche. Our niche is like, if you have qualified people coming to your site, maybe they're on your pricing page, maybe they're on your book a demo page. It's not about answering as many questions about your product at that point. It's about funneling, like quickly qualifying them, routing them to the right person on the team, and booking that call ASAP and getting the AI out of the way. Like,
Wow.
remove the barrier at that point. Like, so many people are using AI like to field a lot. I think the way we think about like what does good AI do in the sales and recruiting space is it removes all the boundaries to the right to people having a productive conversation. That should be your goal. Like, it should not be to replace any part of the human interaction other than like expedite it.
Right, because I mean, like in your example, I mean, I'm guessing, like if a person had to, franchise, and then you have to ask all those questions and all that stuff, and the person's like not a good fit, like you're wasting, both people's time. And is
100%.
that over text, over email, or it could be either?
That particular campaign's over text message. We have other ones over email. So say somebody, this can be a little bit dicey, right? Some people don't necessarily love this, but like, let's say you have a site visitor that you've de-anonymized, right?
Right.
Immediately reaching out to them, and just saying like, hey, have you considered, and you can use tools like Clay, right, to actually create like personalization at the point, like, I'm a company that solved this problem. This person uses my website. This is their company, right? Like, what
Okay.
pain points do you think they have? Like, and so you can put together a pretty thoughtful, like automated but thoughtful message. The person's like, hey, notice that you might be researching solutions that do these things. Would it make sense to set up a conversation? And then when they reply, and this is the big one, Andy, all like you have other email tools that could go out and send an email from that, but every single other one stops the minute somebody responds. Do you know what the most important time is to reply to somebody?
I'm
When
guessing as
they
soon as
respond, you
yeah,
have
right
like
away.
they are in their inbox and like not in a meeting for probably another 5 minutes. Keep that conversation going. Like, so many like I
Ah,
love
yeah.
sequencers like, say, like, Smart Lead and Instantly, and like they're beautiful and they're wonderful. But the problem isn't those tools. The problem is, there was a post the CEO of Instantly did the other day, right? And they're big on cold outbound. And he was like, the biggest thing you can do is make sure you respond within 15 minutes. And they have all these Slack alerts and things going. But it's like,
Yep.
AI is good enough in a lot of cases to, again, don't try to answer other questions. Don't try to have the whole conversation. Quickly get them to the right person if they're qualified. Like, so people can use our email solution to do that. That's like a big one that I think
Yeah.
as intent data wraps up, will scale more.
I had someone I came across as one of my, that this person owns a concrete company, and he was
Yeah,
talking about it, and he was basically, he didn't have anybody that was answering the phones because it's a pretty small operation, and but he was, and then he was talking to someone else saying almost the exact same thing you are, like if you don't respond pretty quick, you've lost them, right? They're on to the next company, they're done with you. So time
yep.
is of the essence, right?
Speed delete is everything, man. Like, and people have known this for a while, right? I mean, you saw companies like Chili Piper really build their business on top of like, people are on your site, they don't want to wait, they don't want to hit a contact us, they want to get to a demo, right? But then we've started to have the opposite problem now, which is like people had over access to owner, like your friend, like over access to him, who really weren't qualified or at the right stage in the buying process. Um,
Right.
and the other thing, right? I think Maddie's going to do a post on this the other day, or she's
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
so
working
many
on.
people lie on form fills. Like, they lie, and
Yeah.
here's why they lie. They don't know if they're going to get value. they are not assured they're going to get value. And so they're like, I'm not giving you my email and all my info for you to
Right.
just spam cannon me onto a nurture campaign. And so what you'll notice, right, is the way our web chats are trained. Like if you come to our site to say
Okay.
get a demo, right? Like if you come to
Sure.
our site get a demo, it's not going to make you like give all your information up front to do that. It's going to start a conversation. Yo, Andy, what are you interested in? Or
Yeah.
it'll just start even open-ended. Like, hey, what are you interested in? Are you interested in sales, recruiting, productivity? Oh, I'm interested in recruiting. Oh, okay, cool. We can get that done. Hey, what's your name? Not what's your name, what's your email, what's your AC,
Right.
right?
Right.
It's gonna have a conversation to get to the rest of that, right? So you want prospects to give information that feels fair for the stage of the conversation they're in. Stop trying to like suck all the information out of people so you can get it into your CRM before you know if this person's even like
Right.
ready to have that conversation because they will lie to you. And now you have a whole role. I'm like getting on my soapbox here because
This
like
is great.
this
Yeah.
is
No.
this is
Go
this
ahead.
is like where I live. Now you have people like, all right, so Rippling. So we Rippling is our PO, phenomenal company. But when I booked my demo with them, it was like, pick your time. It didn't go on
Mhm.
my calendar. Somebody called me 10 minutes later, was like, are you real? Will you be there? And only at that point did I actually get to book my demo because you just
Yeah. Yeah.
like they know people lie on these forms. And so
Right.
then having things like the text message outreach or the progressive web chat or the timely emails, right, that are only taking the sips of information needed to get it to the next part of the journey,
Right.
that's like the key. I'm off my soapbox for like
That's great.
2 minutes, so I
No,
get on the the next one.
I appreciate. I was, in my former life, I worked, I was in charge of a marketing database, so I kind of understand that point where from our side, it was like, "What do you mean you didn't get their NAICS code and their" "What do you mean you didn't get their Social Security?" Not that we'd go that far, but, it was always that balance between, yeah, how do you need the data, but at the same point, you don't wanna lose the person over asking for everything.
Yeah,
Um
exactly. No, that's exactly right.
Walk me
100%.
through, like, so, okay, say I'm a bigger company, I'm not, but I'm just using this example. Say I have a big company, I have a big sales force, and,
Yeah.
like, do you guys kind of custom tailor the need, or is there some kind of, I mean, not to get into the weeds too much, but I mean, if you're saying, "Hey, I have Salesforce," for example, or something else, and, "Hey, I wanna ripple through my contacts." I don't know for sure if that's a good example, but, like, maybe walk me through how do you guys partner with a company? Do you guys, is it
Yeah.
kind of you figure out the needs and back and forth, or how does that work?
What we've kinda learned, I can't remember who did a post on this the other day, but they were dead on. They were like, "You're not selling, just a tool anymore. You are selling a part of a go-to-market flow for a sales team," right? And so typically, like, the way we run, because 'cause we're still very much so doing founder-led sales, right now. So, like, Maddie will typically do a discovery call with somebody, and it's really funny. I've gotten notes like, "Your SDR was fantastic." And then Maddie's like,
And Maddie's your wife, obviously, for those that don't
yeah,
know,
she's my wife, and she's like
and she
technically she's the CEO, right? So
right,
like, like if you even want to put reporting structure there, like I would be below.
yeah,
It was really funny. I was like, oh, you have such a good SDR on your team. I would just love forwarding those to her. She'll typically do some like discovery pain and qualification of just like, is the opportunity here big enough, right? Like, can
yeah,
we actually have an impact? Because if we can't, let's not
yeah,
go, again, waste time.
right,
Now, a
yeah,
lot of this, right? Our web chat has like disqualified since we launched that a couple weeks ago. The number of unqualified demos getting Maddie's calendar has shrunk massively,
nice, wow,
and our
yeah,
qualified is like way up. So it's like we will also just to note, we will dog food everything. We
uh-huh,
will always eat what we cook, and
that's
yeah,
great,
always do that first. But then if they get into the call with me, usually then we have a second call and we try to get, whoever's running the business side on their team and whoever's doing like their revenue operations and like kind of specifically pinpoint the one or two places where, especially for like a modern sales team, you're going to have like these CRM workflows. And we'll try to say, all right, where where in your workflow are you doing things with humans that should be done with automation? And we'll
uh,
try to pick one to two, right? Because our goal is to say, hey, can we get scheduler into one or two places in those CRM flows
uh-huh,
where it would make sense to have this going and running it? And once we've kind of identified those, the platform has become much better now in terms of like setup is actually very minimal. Like, I
Yeah.
mean,
Wow.
it is wildly small. Like you can go in and set up one of these agents in a pretty open-ended way in under 10 minutes, right?
Wow.
I'm going to start doing some LinkedIn lives. It's like my post earlier this week, right? Of like, hey, we're going to build a web chat live for somebody on the,
Yeah.
on the call and just like
That's cool.
interrogate it and see how it goes. So, I think
Yeah,
that,
give me a little example of the CRM. So like, and I
yeah,
think I know, but just maybe give me a little concrete, like what would somebody, what's a use case of what somebody, how it would tie into. I know you've hinted on
yep.
a couple of them, but
Form fill is a really good one, right? So HubSpot. So anybody running HubSpot comes in, like a form abandons a really good one. So
okay,
let's say somebody comes in, they fill out your form and they don't fill out your booking link. So they filled out the form, they're a new contact in your CRM, but they didn't fill out your booking link. If
okay,
it's been 30 minutes, have schedulers shoot them a text. Hey, notice you're on the site, filled out a form to learn more, but didn't get to choose time. Did you want to set some up? It's like what a good SDR would do, right? Like if they
right,
were running
right,
the play the whole time. Um, Another good one could be like you just had a webinar and now you've got a list and you've got a list of attendees and you want to shoot an email to them. It's like, hey, thanks so much for attending our webinar. Did you have any particular questions you want to chat with a member of our team about? That's a great one, right? Let them
right.
respond back. Again,
And your
don't try.
technology enables kind of those
Yeah,
processes.
it
Okay,
does. So you can run that straight out of a workflow. So if you think about HubSpot, right? Like HubSpot workflows goes right in. We have some people
right,
on what I would say some like so like Close is a pretty popular CRM for I'd say like I don't say like lower market, but like it's $50 a month and it's a great
right.
solution.
Okay.
And they have a ton of integrations with Zapier. So we have
Yep.
people who will actually like enclose, say somebody no shows for a call, they'll change the lead status and that'll pop off a Zap to go text the person and be like, hey, notice you weren't able to make your call today. Would you like to find time to reschedule? Like that's such an annoying thing for them to do. So it'll just go handle it. So really
Yeah.
anywhere you're putting like I'll say this with a caveat.
Yeah.
Anywhere you're putting a human SDR to do a lot of stuff, you could put scheduler. Where I would not put scheduler and where I would not put AI SDRs and where I think they're burning the market is on outbound. On pure outbound of like,
Okay.
I am crafting a message to
Yeah.
this person. Like, I think you're gonna spam your TAM. I think you're gonna burn your market. But that's because that's creative human work. Sending somebody a text message to see if they want to reschedule after a no-show is not creative human work.
Got
It's
it. Got it.
important, but it's not creative. Like, let AI handle that, right? Like,
Right.
reminding people of upcoming meetings and making sure it's on the right cadence. It's important. It's not creative. Let AI go handle that, right? Like,
Yeah. I see what you're
that's kind of
saying.
my thing is like, yeah,
So,
sorry.
like, the emails, I think just to make sure we've all gotten the emails like, "Hey, would you like to," whatever, a lead. I get it still a ton for, like, lead setting services, and that's what you're talking about. Don't use it for that to kind of spam everybody and then kind of like people that you don't have a relationship with or anything. Got
If
it.
they
Okay.
haven't raised their hand and if they haven't shown any kind of an intent signal, right? So I would say like visiting your website, strong intent signal. You should have AI probably can reach out and do that, right? Crafting truly like cold outbound stuff, dicey, right? Like dicey.
Right.
Now what I will say, Andy, that's kind of cool is we've set up our AI to where the minute that, like, let's say you're running something like that, and again, you want to make sure the minute they respond that you can get on top of them, we can actually put our AI into workflows that are initiated elsewhere and then get quickly responded to, right? Because again, that's not like a creative thing at that part. That is a are you there? Are you on it? Right? Like type of thing.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. And we kind of hit on this a little bit. Maybe talk a little bit more about the term agentic AI. And I guess a decent part of your product falls into that. So maybe just talk a little bit more about that, or just what is it in general, and kind of. Yeah, I know we've kind of hit around it, but just maybe talk a little bit about what it is, and kind of what you're seeing trend wise in that area.
It's such a buzzword thing right now, like the agentic AI stuff, like CB Insights doing like the rise of agentic AI. And to Maddie's credit, she was the first one I ever heard say agentic AI. So I'm not saying she was like the
She may have
originator.
came up.
She might
Yeah,
have, who knows? Somebody might have stolen it from her and be like, "Ooh, that's good." Um,
it's possible.
but like, again, going back to that like co-pilot type of thing, right? Like I tell my AI everything I want it to do. That's great. That's really helpful. To I don't see a huge distinguishing between like the autopilot and the agentic, but it's basically right, like treating AI as an agent that can carry out a task or a specific series of tasks. Lindy's like a company that's like really pushing on this, right? Like, come build a Lindy, an AI agent that can carry out like a series of tasks,
Okay.
without you needing to do it. And I think it's funny because people who've been in the automation game for a long time, they're probably like, I mean,
We've been doing this for a while.
yeah, people who are like on UiPath and those sorts of things. I think the difference though now, like the thing is like, why isn't this just workflow 2.0?
Right.
The difference between like agentic AI and workflow 2.0, or like, yeah,
Yeah.
type of a thing is like, actually, you know what? I might have.
I'm gonna
What's that?
Want me to pull something up or
Yeah, let me hold on before you pull it up. Let me kind of log in
sure.
real quick. I should have so I'm logging into our platform, and I want to kind of like pull up an example that I think is a really good display of the difference between a workflow and and agentic AI. Uh,
Okay. Yeah, that's great. Um, and would your product be considered agentic AI, I'm guessing?
yeah, I would definitely consider it that. So I'm trying to pull up one that doesn't have like any like PII or anything on it, right? That's
No,
gonna
no
be
worries.
like weird. So like, um, yeah, like I'll pull up, um, yeah, I'll pull up like ours, for instance, right? Um, Here, you can share it on the screen. Right.
Okay.
So like here's like, like a web chat, right?
Yeah.
So, hey, you're working on web chat, you're you know, you've got sales prospects, you're gonna have a conversational tone, and here's like, some stuff here.
Okay.
And you're gonna always greet people in the same way, right? But then once you've greeted them, right, run on your playbook, it
Uh-huh.
is now not like an if-then statement.
Got it.
And like traditional workflows are like very if-then statement. And
Right.
so what you
Yeah.
can see like we've done here is we're saying like, hey, figure out what their challenges are. I'm not
Right.
telling you if they say it's sales, if they say it's recruiting this, I'm saying figure out
That's
their
super
challenges.
cool.
Okay. You know, now figure out their velocity and volume, right? And I'm training this conversationally. And I'm telling them, I'm saying who's qualified and who's disqualified. And if they're disqualified, do this. I am not building a branched if then statement. I am
Right.
literally giving it objectives and plain English. And I'm saying if
Yeah.
they're,
Oh, super cool.
and that's like the big difference, is just like, it's, it's not like, so, right. If you go to our site now, right. And if I go and I go to book a demo, right. Again, you're gonna see, hey, are you most familiar with sales, recruiting, and general productivity? Right? Sales. Okay. And
Uh-huh.
now, hey, can I have your name? Right? Mike. Right? Like again, that kind of like
So is this
incremental thing.
the front end of what we were seeing, the part you're showing
Yeah, yeah.
someone?
Yeah. So I set up this guy here, right? And then I have my web chat. And so I go
Got
get
it.
my
Okay.
embed code, right? And then I've got my embed code. And
That's what
then
I figured. I just wanna make sure. So we're seeing the front end of what that thing was accomplishing.
yeah, exactly. So now you've got this guy, and now, right, it's asking me about challenges, and it's like, now if I want to say something about like, tell me about you versus Calendly, right? So
Yeah.
now I didn't have to say if they go do this, then that. I've told it some basic things
Right.
that it should know, and as you'll see here, what it's going to do. Hey, Calendly is a passive tool. It requires prospects to pick time. Schedule is proactive. It engages your leads to conversationally qualify, route, and book them into meetings. Hey, are there any specific pain points you're experiencing with Calendly or your current scheduling solution you'd like to address? Like, it's freaking
Nice.
good, right? Like, it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
like branch if then. It's like this agent has an objective, and
Nice.
now it is out there to achieve its objective. Yeah.
That's
So if I
super
say like
powerful.
back and
Wow.
forth is a pain, right? Like I think it's just so important. Like the way to kind of explain agentic AI is to like feel it a little bit different, right?
Yeah.
Can it go rogue sometimes? We've worked really, 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 really hard on our product to make sure that it goes rogue as few times as possible. And I think that that's a big thing that a lot of people, you know, kind of worry about in implementing a solution like this. And I don't blame them for that.
Yeah.
But like the thing is like you are already missing opportunities. You're already missing opportunities by not using things like this, right? And so I think a lot of it is we're in that kind of like you've probably read Crossing the Chasm, right? Or are familiar with
Right.
like some
Yeah.
concepts, right? And it's like you've got the early adopters and then you have the early majority, right? And you kind of the rest. Like we're still in an early adopter phase because you got to have people who are like, hey, the upside is higher to putting something in this place than the risk of the downside of like this thing going a little,
Right.
you know,
So you might
off.
lose, if it screws up and, it gives a bad impression to someone. I mean, the worst that happens is, but if you didn't have it, that person would have probably not interacted and they wouldn't have. So
And
yeah,
you would have been like, you'd be
point.
doing your review next week and be like, yo, you guys didn't follow up with these 3 leads within, the first 30 minutes. And they're like, well, it was midnight, so I wasn't going to. Or like, yeah, sorry, that one slipped through. I was on with the prospect, right? And so like you gotta like look, if you get like 5 leads a month, don't use AI, right? Like, but like if you're getting anywhere around like say like 100 leads a month, you have probably
Yeah.
the type of volume that you need to be really looking at a solution like this.
So one question I just thought of too is like, what do salespeople think of this? I mean, do they embrace it? Are they kind of? I'm guessing it's kind of all over the map. But if done right, I would guess this helps them sell more, right? I mean, if it's
It's
set up.
interesting, right? Like we sell to a lot of like say head of demand gen or like sales directors,
Uh-huh.
people who are experiencing pains along one of, right? Like if we go, oh, well, I guess I could just go back to my
Yeah.
page, right? Like I would say where like salespeople appreciate it tends to be here on that holding show, like their show rates, right? This is where typical salespeople
Right.
really
Kinda like my
appreciate it.
example from earlier where because if that person didn't reschedule, and then I had to.
Exactly.
Okay.
But, like, up here, right, this tends to be more, like, of the marketing or, like, the inbound side of the house, right?
Right.
And then routing it to the right person, well, that's where marketing and sales starts to meet, right?
Right. Tell
And
me a
so
little
what's
bit
been
about the routing. I'm interested in that because, I used to, like I said, my days of the marketing database, that was always a challenge. It was, because there were I mean, at the company I was at, it was really complicated, but it was like, based on annual sales or based on this person's geography. So
yeah.
can you implement those kind of rules and say,
Yeah,
"Hey,
we can. And today it's a little more, I would say, like, that part of it had started more in kind of like an if then realm. The
yeah,
2.0 side of this that I'm really excited about is you being able to say, like, let's go back to this here. When we say like offer times to meet, being able to say underneath of this, right, like in advanced options of like, hey, if this person is in one of these territories, send them to this pool. If they're in one of these territories, send them to this pool. If they're in one of these territories, like, but to type it, right?
yeah,
To say based off of where one of these guys fall, go here. Because if you look at like let's say Chelly Piper, right? It's again, it's an if then statement for
yeah,
everything, right? And it's very cumbersome and it has to be like mapped and everything with the CRM. And like, they're a great product. Like, I mean,
yeah,
they're
yeah,
way bigger than we are. But a lot of times when I've heard why aren't people implementing that, it's like, oh my gosh, like setting up all the rules, maintaining all the rules, right? Like it's a
yeah,
nightmare. Whereas like we've said, hey, you have this, call it, pooled concept here, where I've got pools of people that I can put into things, for instance.
yeah,
And then I can say, like, hey, hey, AI workflow based off of what this person looks like, again, in plain English, send them to this pool or send them to that pool.
right, right. So yeah, so it's not as exact of, yeah, like it doesn't have to be as prescriptive, which is huge. Um, yeah, super helpful. So maybe walk through. I mean, I always like asking people that are in the AI space this question because I have a daughter that's 21, 19, and they're both kind of I don't know what it is. It's a strange feeling, but I'm guessing, you run into people that are kind of opposed to AI or kind of weary of it. What kind of things do you
Maddie did, she was at PNG Signal. She spoke on the main stage actually earlier this year, and she did a great. I think the recording is out there somewhere, but she did a great breakdown. She was like, people aren't sure how they feel about AI. Some
Mhm.
people feel like it's a genie in a bottle, right, and it can just magically do whatever you want. Some people get like Terminator vibes, right? Like AI is here to kill. And then
Right.
other people get like Wally vibes, right? Like I am a helpful robot, to like do these things. And like most people are probably at varying times somewhere on the spectrum. As somebody who works with AI every single day, I can tell you I don't get the Terminator vibes. I don't get the genie vibes. I'm
Yeah.
closer to like the Wally vibes on like that
Right.
I would say would be like closer to my feel is if we do it. Look, I think we are, and I could be wrong here, right? Like everybody could be wrong in this space. I think we are a quantum step away from AGI. Like that, it's not going to be like if you think about like it's a lot of what we're seeing today broke down to like a white paper that Google did, several years ago on the GPT architecture, right? And
Okay.
and so like the GPT architecture is not going to get us to AGI.
What is that,
Like
just high level, not like getting into all the weeds of it, but that's just kind of, the blueprint for kind of where we're headed, kind
yeah,
of?
I mean, so like the way like general purpose transforming works is like they wrote this paper like attention is all you need, right? Was like the name of the paper,
Okay.
and basically like the whole thing was like, hey, when you're training these these networks, you can break down basically every kind of like character pattern into a series of probabilities based off what comes before it and what comes after it, right? To say
Yeah.
what the next character is going to be. And so they are just prediction machines. That is all they are, right? Like they just the GPT architecture is built to predict. It's built to generate. That is why we call it generative AI, right?
Right.
Like it is not like deeply understanding AI. It is meant to generate based off of like the context of all the tokens around it.
Right.
And
Like,
so
help me
like
write this email or help me with
yeah, so it's like okay, I can and like it's like scary good on a lot of them, right? Like I mean, it is a
definitely.
well prompted like if you're going into like Claude or Gemini or like GPT, right? Like well prompted. These LLMs are like mind blowingly good,
I
man. Like
agree.
they're
Yeah.
so good. But like they, at least in my opinion, again could be off here. Like they don't have an understanding of the world around them, right? Like so, I think like when we get to real AGI, it's going to be like this thing understands the nuances of things like human interaction and social patterns and stuff in a way that's like scary good. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right. So that's what that paper kind of explains, that kind of I don't think
Yeah,
that would
yeah,
help my daughter, that would probably even scare 'em more.
yeah.
Maybe not. But,
Yeah,
no.
attention is all you need. That's going to be kind of a dense read. I'm not saying, yeah,
Yeah.
that would be the big
But I
one
think
there.
it's
But
just I mean, it's not going anywhere. I think people, you have to kind of figure out what your niche is with it,
you do
but
have
yeah,
to figure out where your niche is with it. I agree with that.
so, guess one last question, just tell us, like, what's it like on the startup journey? I mean, I guess I don't know how long if you consider yourself still a startup, so I don't wanna be offensive if you don't consider
No,
yourself
look,
that or anything, but
uh,
just maybe just
I
tell us
think
a little
somebody
bit
the
more.
other day referred to like Stripe as a startup. Like, I think until you're like, it's funny, right? It's like, are you a business or are you a startup? I think if your goal is to list on the Nasdaq or be like acquired by a tech company one day, you're still a startup. If you're like cutting lawns, like you're a business, though.
Right,
It's like you
okay.
you set out with like profitability and stuff in mind day one. I don't know. I had a whole debate on Twitter one day that I got way more attention than I expected back when it was
Right.
Twitter. Like, hey, how long are you actually a startup? And got some
Yeah.
really fascinating opinions. But yeah, we are definitely still a startup. I mean, we are seed stage, working towards our Series A or whatever it might be. I mean, I think the thing is like, so Maddie and I both came from a corporate background. I was at General Electric and then at Nielsen and had
Yeah.
wonderful careers there. It's not Shark Tank, right? Most people who've been like corporate their whole life, like Shark Tank is their experience for entrepreneurship. You're just not that.
Correct.
If you haven't been a startup founder, it's just like you can't get it. I mean, there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. The fact that Maddie and I get to do it together is like one of the coolest things.
Right. That's awesome.
It's you walk in some days though, and it's just like it's overwhelming, I mean,
Yeah. How much do you have to work with? Like, I mean, once you're kind of like, depending on what you're doing, like with raising money or whatever, like, can you kind of put that in the back burner for a while, or do you kind of always have to kind of be thinking in
money's
that
an
way?
interesting one, right? Like, I mean, we were lucky to raise a healthy seed round, and we have Drive as our like. It's pretty amazing to have Drive Capital at our back because if we continue to deliver, they're going to continue to make sure we get to the next stage of growth that we need to. Raising money is, especially in this environment, very difficult. This is very difficult. The metrics, the VC community kind of flipped on a dime of what they were looking for, and businesses and
I
founders
see.
back to fundamentals. And so that's why you are seeing a lot of these guys crashing, right? I mean, like they were basically told, go raise and act in this way. And then all of a sudden they were told, actually, you should have been doing it this way, right? And so a lot of them are
Well,
like
they changed the
totally
rules.
left out there. What's that?
They changed the rules on them.
I mean, it's kind of the game, though. You know what I mean? Actually, there was so the guy who started X.AI, Dennis Mortensen, which was kind of like a precursor to what we were trying to do at Scheduler. He got a part and stuff, and we came on with him. He was the best. We were supposed to talk for 30 minutes. We talked for like an hour and a half till I had to go.
Yeah.
And he did say though, he was like, guys, you're in a VC backed company. He's like, everyone should come in with the expectation that a VC backed company will fail. And then when we actually pull it off, we're like, oh my gosh, it actually happened. Like we actually
Right.
did.
It's kind of like being a Browns fan for me. Like you kind of expect them to lose, and then if they win.
Yeah. And he's like, so you should come in every day excited to try and change the world. That's why they gave you money to do this. You should come in thinking big every single day because, again, taking VC money is kind of a one-way door, right? Like you are signing up for trying to get 100x exit. Like that's the game you're playing. If you don't want to play that game, bootstrap it. That's probably the better path to wealth creation in the most part of it. That's what I've learned along the way, right? But like we are VC backed. And so I think what Dennis said, which is really helpful, is like every day we should come in and be like, how can we like really blow this up? Knowing that the chances of us winning are slim, but we're running for it,
Yeah,
and if we hit that point, then we all just get to kind of like pump our fists in the air and be like, that was amazing, right? And
it's
so
the American dream, right? I mean, it's amazing.
yeah, it is. And it's just like I would say even beyond the American dream, it's like the creator's dream, right? Like if you I remember reading this thing one time. It's like smart people should build things, right? And I was very convicted by that, right? Like not saying like, oh, I'm like super smart and all that,
Yeah.
but like I had the drive to build stuff. I wanted to. The world needs people who want to come in and build things, even if they don't all work out. And so I think for me, it's a very called to purpose thing. Like I think you got to look at too, like a lot of what kind of purpose you feel like you were given. And I've definitely always felt the need to create. I think you've got to kind of know some of that about yourself, and I wouldn't rather be doing anything else right now. I can tell you that much.
That's great. Yeah, I love creating things too. But
Yeah,
well, my
you get it.
advice has been so great, and I wish you all the best. And I'll
Thanks,
continue to
Andy.
be a client and to advocate for you guys. Tell me, I guess before we go, what kind of companies are you looking for that would be a great fit? Obviously, we talked about
Yep.
it, but like, is there any specific
I would
people listening?
say
Like, hey, if you're in this kind of world, let's talk. Or
thanks for asking that. We work really well to companies in the B2B SaaS space, right? But I would
staff,
say
you
we've
said,
also,
or
what's that?
B2B staff, you said, or
B2B SaaS. So
oh,
anybody
staff.
in
Sorry,
like
I misheard. Sorry.
if you're trying, no, you're good. If you're trying to book people into demos, right? Like if your business, and again, we do things from franchises to to pure B2B SaaS, and like if you're trying to book more qualified revenue generating meetings, whatever that might look like,
Okay.
right? If you are looking to drive more than that, there's a very good chance that, as long as you're past a certain stage of growth, say you're getting like 100 site visitors a month, or you're booking at least, call it like 5 qualified demos a week, there's a very, very good chance that either all of the scheduler platform, or at least a component of it, is going to have an impact for you.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
that's the thing. If you care about getting leads into revenue generating meetings, the only other one I would say is we do work with a lot of recruiters too. So people who are doing a lot of high volume recruiting, right? Like again, can I get somebody qualified? Can I get a qualified candidate into a meeting? That's kind of our second largest cohort of customers.
Oh, so you mean like HR, like, "Hey, I'm looking for a VP of sales," or that kinda is that what you're
A lot
saying?
of those tend to be more nuanced search. So, for example, we have people who use us for like seasonal employment, or
Okay,
like we have one of our best clients is actually they do in-home nursing care, and so they have to
nice.
interview like a ton of people, like a couple hundred people a week, who reach out over Indeed, but they need to meet some certain qualifications, right? Do they have location flexibility, pay flexibility, etc. And
Uh,
so we can screen and book at very high volumes for
oh,
those.
wow. Like, without them having to touch it. Wow, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
we have one person who booked like, I don't know, yesterday she sent in 56 people who came off Indeed, and we only booked like the top 27 who actually met her
Wow,
criteria. And she literally just went to Google Sheet, used our Zapier plugin, put them all in, and whoop, did nothing. It just took care of it.
wow. That's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, well, Mike, I always love talking to you, and,
Hey, man.
um, what's the best way to get a hold of you or the company, I guess, if people wanna learn more? I
Yeah.
guess we already had the website up, but
Go have a chat,
yeah,
scheduling AI. It'll either tell you, probably what you need to know, or if it seems like you're a good fit for the company, it'll get you into a call with our chief SDR, Maddie. So
nice. Well, nothing but the best, Mike. I really appreciate you taking the time, and, keep it up. I'll, keep giving you good feedback on all the great things you're doing, so,
thanks, Andy.
um,
Appreciate it, man.
well, thanks everybody, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks for joining.